I was not diagnosed with ADHD until I was 40. And so most of my life, obviously, I had these debilitating symptoms. I didn't really know what they were. I was a coach for many years before I dove into the world of neurodivergence, and I was helping other women. Well, at the same time, my teenagers really started struggling, specifically my oldest son. I didn't know we had ADHD in our family. My kids weren't hyper, and that's what I thought ADHD was. So I never, ever thought, oh, maybe they have ADHD. And I was not prepared for what came. And so I was desperately looking for help, seeking out counselors and therapists. My son attempted suicide, and I got to the point where I thought that I might lose him.
Hi everyone, good afternoon. This is Adolfo Segovia with Venciendo la Depre. I'm the host of this podcast, and today I have an amazing guest. Her name is Jerry South. She's an ADHD specialist, and she's also a life coach. And she has an amazing story that she's going to share with us today. And she also has she has been helping a lot of people for several years with ADHD and also with their lives. So I'm very happy to have her here today. And before we begin, I just want to give a brief introduction about myself. My name is Adolfo Segovia. I was born and raised in Mexico. When I was 18 years old, I was abducted by a drug cartel. A couple of months later, I was assaulted at gunpoint. And a couple of months later, the cartel actually started threatening my family to kidnap my mother or my sister if we don't pay a monthly rent. So at that time, we decided to escape from Mexico and move to the U.S. Thank God for the U.S., for the opportunity it gave us. And then in the U.S., we also had many other issues. We moved to a different country, no family, no friends. We started a business. We ended up losing everything. So after all those episodes, I started feeling bad. And after it took me several years, actually about 5 to 6 years, to realize that to get diagnosed with major depression disorder, anxiety, ADHD, and PTSD. So that's why I decided to create this podcast to try to help people, share my story, share other people's stories, and invite professionals and experts on different topics so that we can provide the most accurate information to people who might be suffering mental health issues or just want to learn more. So today we have an amazing guest, Jerry South. Again, I'm super happy to have her here. So Jerry, please introduce yourself and tell us about you.
Happy to. It's just when you tell your story, I just want to say that I really appreciate the work that you're doing. That's a unique story, obviously. And so I feel like we're here to talk about me and what I do, but I really want to talk about you. So another time, right? But it's wow, really incredible that you have taken what you've gone through and then you're turning it into this and helping other people. So I applaud you for that.
Thank you.
But I appreciate the invitation to be here. So I am, like you said, I'm an ADHD expert. I also specialize in autism, neurodivergence as a whole. I'm a mother of 7 children, and I was a single mother of 6 children for a very long time. And I was not diagnosed with ADHD until I was 40. And so most of my life, obviously, I had these debilitating symptoms. I didn't really know what they were. And you really just start to think that it's part of your personality, right? Like I'm just very sensitive, or internally, I can get kind of crazy inside when I'm offended or people hurt my feelings. And also, the good things with ADHD, entrepreneurial, take risks, but also, the debilitating side of not always being able to complete things and being easily distracted and sometimes making impulsive decisions that don't serve me. So experiencing all of that and not really having a name for it. And the reason I got into this work, specifically ADHD. I was a coach for many years before I dove into the world of neurodivergence. And I was helping other women. I was helping women who had been in a similar situation as I had been. I had a lot of success in my career and reinventing myself, and I wanted to help women do the same. Well, at the same time, my teenagers really started struggling, specifically my oldest son. And it really wasn't something that I was expecting, even though I was a single mother. My children were pretty easy when they were young. They weren't hyper, they weren't emptying cupboards and drawing on walls. I could take them with me everywhere, and I really enjoyed that stage of life. My kids were just easy. And then they became preteens and teenagers, and it was like, oh my goodness, what is happening? And I wasn't prepared. I didn't know we had ADHD in our family. My kids weren't hyper, and that's what I thought ADHD was. So I never, ever thought, oh, maybe they have ADHD. And I was not prepared for what came. And so I was desperately looking for help, seeking out counselors and therapists. My son attempted suicide, and I got to the point where I thought that I might lose him. And so at the same time, I'm a coach and I'm helping other women. And these women are asking me, will you work with teenagers? And I thought, no way. Teenagers are so hard. My son hates me. I don't want to do that. But eventually I did. And I put together a pilot program, and I had a handful of teens in that program. And it ended up being the first thing that helped my son. And that's when I really started to explore coaching and why it was helping him and why the help that we were getting for him was not helping. One by one, everyone in our family started being diagnosed with either ADHD. 5 of my kids are on the autism spectrum. 6 of the 7 have. I was remarried. My youngest son, my kids range in age right now from 29 years old all the way down to 8 years old. So I've done all of the stages. Most of them are adults now. And in fact, the reason we discovered ADHD was because my sister had a binge eating disorder, and she went to get help for that, and it was connected to ADHD. And because ADHD has such a high comorbidity rate, I was really finally able to understand, oh, this is ADHD and autism. This is ADHD and OCD, which runs in my family. And I just have been on a mission ever since. I've reached out to the biggest specialists I know to talk to them, to bring camera crews into their living room, to absorb as much and learn as much as I can from them, because there is so much misinformation out there about neurodivergence, so that I can help other people who maybe have been in the same situation I'm in, or just want to understand themselves better or parent their children better.
Definitely. And I think we should have another conversation about neurodivergence, which I've seen it. The term is more common now. Before, it was not that common. I thought it was more like autism or mental health, but now I've been hearing a lot about neurodivergence. But today I want to focus on ADHD because it's an issue it's a condition that I also have, and that it has affected me in many different ways. Jerry, can we start with what is ADHD and what causes it? Why do we get ADHD?
Sure. This is sometimes can be a hot topic because I don't think everybody agrees on where ADHD comes from. I've talked to enough specialists to believe and understand that ADHD is something that you are born with. Now, I do think that environmental factors can definitely affect your ADHD. I've read the studies that the doctors have provided. They've done a lot of studies where they've taken children that were adopted and put them in homes where the families have ADHD, but they were not born with it, or kids that were born with ADHD and they're being raised in families that don't have ADHD. They've done just lots of different studies, and it's conclusive that you are born with ADHD, but trauma really can increase ADHD symptoms.
Right.
Yeah, so I like to think of it, this may not be, a doctor may not explain it the same way, but I like to think of it as you have not just a predisposition, but if you want to think of it that way, you're born, they can see in the scans, brain scans, as early as infancy, if you have ADHD or not. If you're ADHD, you're neurodivergent. So neurodivergence shows up in these brain scans when you're young. But I've worked with adults who will say, yeah, there were some things, like I wasn't hyper. There were these little things here and there. It didn't affect my life. And then I lost a loved one, or I went through some kind of traumatic event, and then it changed. Everything changed. And there's lots of reasons for that. ADHD people are extremely sensitive. So when we talk about what is ADHD, I like to think of ADHD as also being a spectrum, kind of like we think of autism. It just varies so much. So it is ADHD. It's not just one thing. We used to think that ADHD was hyperactive boys running around the playground, pulling girls' hair and couldn't sit still in school. And that's not really what ADHD is. In fact, 2/3 of all children and adults who have ADHD do not identify with being hyperactive at all. So we don't use the term ADD anymore. Now everything does fall under the umbrella of ADHD, but that's because the H can either stand for hyperactivity or it can stand for hyperarousal. So people who aren't hyperactive might still feel hyper on the inside, meaning they are overthinking things a lot of the time. They have multiple thoughts at one time. They still tend to be a little bit impulsive, either in their spending or when they're speaking to somebody, or they struggle sleeping, struggle to either fall asleep or stay asleep. So there's hyperarousal going on. So most of us are aware that it can be hyperactivity. It can also be difficulty focusing, following through on things. We don't like to be bored. We have to have constant stimulation. We're dopamine chasers. So when we get bored, we start to lose focus. We're easily distracted. We're constantly wanting to be stimulated. So that's one side of ADHD, but I think the side that we're not talking about enough. And I think the DSM, by the way, the DSM-5, which is where we are now in doing evaluations and looking for ADHD, still mostly just focuses on behaviors. And usually behaviors come from hyperactivity. But ADHD is more so what's going on in here than it is external behaviors. We don't do a very good job evaluating ADHD. And this is why it misses so many, especially girls. Girls tend to be very good at masking. They're usually less hyper as well. It misses people who are willing to do twice as much work for half the reward. They're just working really hard to keep up with everybody else in their work and their follow through. But also the emotional dysregulation is a huge part of ADHD, the extreme sensitivity to constructive criticism or being teased or failing to meet other people's expectations. In fact, and we can talk about this if you want to, but rejection sensitivity dysphoria, or RSD, falls under that umbrella of emotional dysregulation in ADHD. And 1/3 of all adults today say that RSD, rejection sensitivity dysphoria, is the number one debilitating symptom that they deal with when it comes to ADHD.
Yes, definitely. I want to point out that in my experience, as I'm not an expert, I'm not a doctor, but I've suffered from this for many years now. When I was a child, I was a bit hyperactive, or actually, I would say mild hyperactive. But I was not like, I was able to understand, I was able to focus, I was able to retain information. After all these traumas that happened to me, that's when the ADHD grew, right? And when I was a child, as you said, I probably had it, but it was normal. You know, the school sent me to the psychologist a couple of times, but my parents were like, he's okay. Are you okay? Yes, I feel fine. Just behave, just be calm, just study, do your things. But I do believe I probably had it since I was, but after all the traumas, my brain became, I don't know how to say it, but I was not able to retain anything. I remember at that time, when I was in my worst point, in my worst time, I was trying to study for the GMAT exam to get a master's in business. My dream was to go to Harvard, by really, I really wanted to go to, an Ivy League school. And I was preparing for the GMAT, and I would go to the library and study 3, 4 hours. And I would get home and I would cry because I couldn't remember anything. And I didn't know what it was at that time. I haven't been to the psychiatrist at that time. That's when I went to the psychiatrist, when I felt that I was getting crazy. I remember my lowest point. One day I was taking a shower, and I remember getting lost in the shower, just looking at the drops falling from the shower for an hour. And I was not able to have a follow-up. Okay, I'm gonna get soap, shower, move. No, I was just staring at the shower for 1 hour, and I was afraid. I was like, this is not normal. Now I don't know what's happening to me, but this is not normal. But I feel that I'm getting crazy. And then the studying, I couldn't study, I couldn't learn. And that's when I went to a psychiatrist, and then they sent me all the medication, and I didn't want to take the medication for ADHD because I consider it as a drug, which is a drug. It's methamphetamine salts. So I would like to talk about that. What do you think about medication, Jerry? I've been taking medication for several years. I've been trying to lower it. I have not been able to do it. Why do we have to take methamphetamines for
So this is a great question, and I just want to preface it by saying that I was strongly against medication in the beginning. My oldest daughter, who is 29 now, she actually was hyper. She was the one that was hyper, and that was a long time ago too. And I was so anti-medication. And then as my other children, as we started to realize, everybody has ADHD. I should say I didn't know for sure that my oldest daughter had ADHD. I remember thinking whether she does or she doesn't, I don't want to even go down that path because I wouldn't do medication anyway. And so then I was married and I had the rest of my children, and I never suspected ADHD again. I just want to point that out. As doctors are recommending medication, I'm hearing so many terrible things about medication. It's addictive. And I'm having thoughts like, I don't want my children to be on anything that alters their brain. I don't want them to have to rely on medication to be able to function. So probably, and lots of other things that I think many people out there, they've had those thoughts. And it's one thing when it's you, it's another thing when it's your child. My opinion has changed quite a bit over the last 5 years, I would say. And I'll tell you why that is. It's because when it's just you and your opinions, I was natural everything. I even got to the point where I didn't want to do vaccinations with my children. You can kind of oversee what's happening in your own family and you can try everything. That didn't work. By the way, my son still attempted suicide. So it's like, how far are you willing to go to be anti-medication before you're willing to experiment? And everybody either gets to that point or they don't. They either learn to manage it without medication, or things get worse and worse and you realize what you're doing isn't working. I work with a lot of adults, but I work with many teenagers. I work with kids who in elementary school have been kicked out of 3 schools. They don't have any friends. They've never been invited to a single birthday party. They're taking money and chips to the playground, trying to bribe kids to play with them. It's sad. And finally, their parents decide to try medication and everything changes. So I don't push medication on people, but I also am not anti-medication. I don't think that there's one treatment plan for everybody. I think that some people can take a non-stimulant medication and manage their ADHD. Some people, what I do in behavioral coaching and mindset training, I think is the most important thing, whether you have medication or not medication, because it teaches you how to think differently and overcome the trauma and the wiring that's holding you back. But I will tell my clients, sometimes I can get you all the way to where you want to be. But there are some people that they're so impulsive, but when the rejection sensitivity, when that RSD episode hits, they can't even remember what they said when they were mad because they were so upset. Now, that's not necessarily common. Everybody doesn't experience that, but they do experience not being able to control their impulses. And so some of my clients, I say, I can get you to about 80%, but like they need the medication to calm their brain down so that they can implement what they're learning. So let me just tell you, and this is not a scientific explanation, but this is for the average person, this might help. With the stimulant medication, there's 4 molecules in the stimulant medication, and 3 of them do absolutely nothing for ADHD. But one of them, and they don't really know why, mirrors a molecule up here towards the top of your brain that an ADHDer's brain is burning through very quickly. And so what the stimulant medication does is it mirrors that molecule so that as your brain's burning through it so quickly, it's providing a replacement to calm down the nervous system. It's calming down. It's allowing you to focus. It's calming down your decision making so you're not so impulsive. It's helping you to regulate your emotions. This is why there's so many different kinds of medication. This is why my 90-pound niece, is able to take 3 times more medication than I am, because it doesn't have anything to do with your height or your weight or your age or your gender. There's actually no such thing as a starting dose. It's just whatever your absorption rate is. And so I would tell you that half of my kids take medication and half of them do not. But the other thing I'll tell you, though, is that you shouldn't be feeling anything on your medication. So for someone who doesn't have ADHD, you can probably have a high. I wouldn't know because I have ADHD. The reason I know my medication is working when I take it is because I can look back at everything I accomplished throughout the day. I'm like, wow, I got everything done. And I know that when I'm not on my medication, I'm busy all day. I'm busy, I'm doing things, but I'm just not getting things done. I don't even realize it's happening. I'm transferring from one thing to another and I've got piles. And at the end of the day, I'm exhausted. I've been working all day, but I just didn't meet the mark. If you
Yes.
feel really overstimulated, if you are jittery or you have headaches or it's doing something to you, you're on too much medication. Or if you feel numb and you're walking around like a zombie and it's changing your personality, you're on too much medication. You shouldn't be feeling euphoric or extra hyper because you're taking medication.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you on that. As I said, I've been taking medication for several years. The first time I went to a psychiatrist, I told him, I don't want to take your medication. Those are drugs. And I remember this phrase from him because it actually changed my mind. He told me, do you want to live or you don't want to live? You choose. Because right now you don't have a life, right? You are on the floor. And I was on the floor. I was really on the floor, losing it, depressed, sad, anxious, completely lost. So I said, I want to leave. I started taking medication. Now I am trying to get rid of the medication. I don't want to be attached to medications for all my life. I don't name myself as I'm a depressed person. No. I suffer depression, I'm trying to heal myself, but I don't label myself as a depressed person or my depression. I hate when people say that. My depression, my ADHD, it's not mine. I don't own it. I don't want it. I'm dealing with it, but I'm praying and I believe in God and I'm praying and I'm working on a way to get rid of that. By the way, I have to say that I reduced my doses of depression about 50%. The ADHD is the only one that I've been keeping the same. And for a long time, actually last year, I lost kind of my dream job because I was not taking the right dosage because I thought I can do it with half and I was not able and I ended up losing my job. And unfortunately today, I have to say with sadness that if I don't take the medication, I cannot function. So I don't know if it's addictive. I don't know if my brain is used to it. I don't know what's happening, but if I don't take it, unfortunately, I cannot function. So I'm always obviously looking for alternatives. I'm always trying all type of supplements. I'm doing therapy. I'm going to therapy. Therapy works a lot. I want to, highlight that. We need therapy. We need to identify what's going on in our brain. We need therapy is essential for everyone. I would say for everybody. So yeah, that's my situation with the medication. And
Well, let
again,
me
I don't
interject.
want to, yeah,
If you don't
please.
mind, let me interject there. So I would say that you've been through a lot of trauma. So the anxiety and depression makes a lot of sense to me, right? But for your audience, I just want to highlight that many times there is a misdiagnosis of anxiety and depression because the ADHD has gone on untreated for so long. I'm not suggesting that that's true for you, but I just want to put out there that it's very common that even before ADHD medication is recommended, antidepressants and anxiety meds, and at least 50% of the time, if you treat the ADHD alone, the depression and the anxiety goes away. Because when you have untreated ADHD, you're internally comparing yourself to everyone. You're usually suffering from rejection sensitivity dysphoria, which nobody likes to be rejected. But when you have RSD, it's so much more extreme. A lot of it's perceived rejection. It can send you into a downward spiral. It can last for a week or more at a time. That's debilitating. There's a few things I want to say if it's okay for your audience that I think that could be helpful. There is a medication specific for ADHD, and anytime someone's being treated for ADHD and they haven't explored an alpha agonist for RSD, I'm always questioning a little bit why that is.
Alpha
Uh,
what?
doc, it's called an alpha agonist, and most doctors who are really well versed in ADHD will automatically know to do a questionnaire or evaluate you for rejection sensitivity dysphoria, and they will put you on an alpha agonist in combination with your stimulant medication. The alpha agonists, there's two of them that we use. You don't take both together, it's one or the other, but it's guanfacine or clonidine. They were created as blood pressure medications. They don't work very well for blood pressure medications, but they treat RSD really well. So you start with one, either guanfacine or clonidine. You just try one because it's going to be one or the other. About 30 to 35% of the population will respond positively to guanfacine. And I can send all of this to you too, by the way, so that you have it. I have all the literature. The doctors and specialists I've worked through have been gracious to just give me all of their research and their documents and the handouts they gave to their clients. So I have all of this. This isn't just me. This is all based and researched and comes from doctors. Guanfacine will, about 30 to 35% of clients or the population will respond positively to guanfacine, or you could do clonidine first. It doesn't matter. But if that doesn't work for you, then you move over to the other one. We'll say the
Yes,
clonidine.
please send me that, and maybe we post
I
it
will.
online. I haven't tried that. I haven't tried that at all.
Well, and let me tell you, so I use clonidine, as a lot of my clients use guanfacine. There is probably about 30% of people who won't get use out of either one, but we're talking about 70% overall effect between the two. That's pretty high for a positive effect of a drug. But it's a non-stimulant. It's a very mild, it's a blood pressure medication. And what it does is it helps to control impulses. It stops the multiple thinking, multiple thoughts at one time. It definitely helps with sleep. In fact, the clonidine has a sedative effect that lasts for 3 to 4 hours. Even though the guanfacine didn't work for me very well, I still had the best sleep of my life when I tried it, because I tried that one first. And so I take guanfacine every night, and then it really helps with the sensitivity. It's used to treat rejection sensitivity dysphoria. So what I wanted to say is that, there's the alpha agonists that in my opinion, if you're taking medication at all, you should be taking that with your stimulant medication. People who don't want to take stimulant medication, they can just try that first, And then there's also, I was going to say, you probably need a behavioral coach, an ADHD coach. I have so much respect for therapists and doctors. I have family in the medical field, but I will say, this is just my personal opinion. I think that if you're neurodivergent, you really benefit from working with someone who's neurodivergent and has overcome these things themselves. And I'll tell you, my personal experience for this is that I've now had 2 children who have attempted suicide, because it's really difficult. It doesn't matter the work that I do, your kids don't want to listen to you, and I didn't know about all of this until it was a little too late. I don't agree when I've had clients and even family members who have gone to have their children evaluated, and the doctors will say, well, it's not really causing that big of a problem right now, so let's just wait until it's causing a problem, and then, if it is, then we can deal with it then. I do not agree with that, because my experience is that by the time it's causing a problem, it's been festering and going on internally for so long that now it is a huge problem. So I think that, preventative treatment, behavioral coaching before it gets to that point, so that, like you said, I completely agree with you. It's not who you are, it's your wiring. And people with ADHD suffer tremendously with self-esteem issues, because they have been comparing themselves, and they've been hearing, by age 10, people with ADHD have heard over 20,000 corrective messages compared to the average neurotypical child, because they're constantly being compared. Why can't you stop doing that? Why can't you do that faster? Why didn't you follow through? Why can't you just pay attention? A fragile self-esteem. So treatment can look like a lot of different things. It can look like alpha agonists. It can look like stimulants. I think it should always look like behavioral coaching from someone who is experiencing what you're experiencing and has overcome it and can teach you to do that, right? Who really understands this stuff, medication or not. And I would say that when it comes to medication, if my advice for you is that if you're really wanting to get off medication, coaching might be a great avenue for you, whether it's me or somebody else. But it makes sense to me that people who are a lot of people will think that they've grown out of their ADHD as adults, or they won't understand why it's coming on now. And then they'll think, oh, it's not ADHD, it's trauma. Just looking at rejection sensitivity itself, I have noticed with my own clients and in my own life that when you're going through a difficult phase of life, you're experiencing trauma, or you haven't healed from trauma, or maybe just the phase of life you're in is extremely difficult, rejection sensitivity episodes will come much more often, and they will last much longer. I can honestly say that this was so debilitating for me, RSD, when I was in my 20s. I felt like I was being clawed from the inside out. I felt crazy sometimes. I was experiencing extreme abandonment. I was in so much pain. It was running my life. I do not experience RSD episodes anymore. I think I had one that lasted for 30 minutes 3 years ago, and it was so minor, and I just coached myself through it, and it was gone. It just doesn't happen anymore. Is my RSD completely gone? I can't say that, but does it affect my life anymore at all? No. So will your ADHD ever go away? No. But can you get to a point where it's the negative effect is minimal? Absolutely. And my personal opinion is that comes from mindset training through a really good, strong coaching program that shouldn't be lasting years. A lot of the clients that come to me have been in therapy for 2 years. I don't think that's necessary. Like a 3-month program is usually pretty sufficient. And then if you need medication to help you implement those things and to get through trauma, totally understandable. And the last little remark I'll make, because I know I've gone on, is that I have a type 1 diabetic son. And so I will use that example a lot, that, he has to be on that for the rest of his life to have a great quality of life. And so if you're replacing a molecule in your brain that needs to slow down, even if it's at a low dose, I don't see a problem with that if it's giving you a really great quality of life. And if you can get to a point where you don't need it, that's great too. But I don't see any shame in, sometimes our bodies just need extra support to be able to function the way that it's supposed to.
Yes, and I agree with you. I believe that therapy is one of the key parts to actually heal, because we can take medication for all our lives, and that's only gonna keep us there. But if we want to heal, we need to look for other alternatives. Therapy, anything. I'm open to that, to try everything that can help me heal. I don't really care about the medication or no medication. I wanna heal myself. I wanna be 100%. I don't wanna rely on a medicine every day. If I don't take the medicine, I cannot work. I'm lost. I'm like in Wonderland. And so
Right.
it's terrible. But we're there. We're fighting. And that's something that I always tell people: depression or mental health, it's a daily fight. It's not something that you're going to cure tomorrow. It's not something that's going to disappear. You have to fight it every day, because you need to fight. I mean, it takes effort. It takes willingness to go to treatments, to look for help, to wake up or go to work even when you are feeling like shit on your bed.
Yes.
It's hard. It's hard, but I have many times I have to cry before I can wake up. Not wake up, to get out of my bed. I almost have to cry and shout like, I need to get out. I need to fight. I need to move. I cannot stay here. I want to live. I want to help. I want to enjoy my life. Life is beautiful. So, Jerry, how can someone distinguish between having ADHD and just having lack of motivation or feeling tired? Because, and this happened when I was in college. Every kid who was going to the doctor, oh, I feel I cannot concentrate. Oh, I cannot retain information. Medication, medication. And you know that we have a problem in America of, the pharma
Right.
sending doctors sending medications to everybody. How can someone distinguish if it's really ADHD or it's just a bad season or having a bad day, or maybe they are tired or distracted or something like that?
It's a great question because, I'm all over social media talking about these things, and you will get a lot of people who, don't have ADHD or don't believe they have ADHD, and they'll say things like, well, I do that too. You just have to try a little harder. And of course, if you have ADHD, nobody wants to hear that. It can be an offensive statement because they are trying harder. So I think, what's really great is it's so accessible now to even take ADHD quizzes. For example, I have one on my website that I offer for free. If you want to know if you have ADHD, I'm not qualified to diagnose you, but it's right from the doctor's office, one of the top specialists I know. A lot of the questions come right from that. And there's a high probability, if you answer a certain amount of those questions with a yes, that you have ADHD. And the questions on there address things like impulse control. So it's not just one thing, right? It's not just one thing, but you could not have any of the hyperactive symptoms and still have ADHD. So it's more about, when I think about ADHD, I think about struggling to have consistency in your life, really having a desire. Like in your mind, you're thinking, I'm going to just like kill it today. I'm going to get things done. And then you just can't do it. It's sitting in front of you. You can't figure out why you can't do it. You're wasting time. You're staying busy, but you're just like bouncing like a, like a ping pong ball back and forth all over the house. It's just like cleaning this, putting this away. You're busy. You're doing things. And there's a real ADHD paralysis. And so we want to look at first of all, emotional dysregulation. And again, to your point, there's just so much overlap that yes, it could just be depression. It could be, you're going through a hard time in life and so you're feeling sad. But I want to highlight that when you're taking the ADHD quiz that I provide, for example, the question is, for as long as you can remember, have you been this way? So not like for the last month, and if you've been through trauma, those questions might be a little bit tricky. Like in your case, you might say, well, I haven't always been like this as a kid, but I've been this way since the trauma. But a lot of the questions, if you really look at them, you will be able to acknowledge and determine, I have been this way since I've been little. It just wasn't a problem, right? Did I have a hard time sitting still in my seat? Was I always having to fidget my hands or kick my leg or get up and get a drink? Do I lose attention quickly? Do I have a hard time focusing? Is it difficult to follow through on a project or an assignment if it's boring? Because what I want to highlight is that someone who's neurotypical, if there's something in front of them that needs to be done, just the fact that it's important or there will be a reward at the end is enough for them to get their brain engaged and do it. But if you have ADHD, that does absolutely nothing for you. It doesn't matter how important it is. That's not what engages your brain. Our brain is engaged through novelty, through interest, through a challenge or competition, or through passion. And then also, if something's urgent, all week we might not be motivated to do it, but at the do or die last moment, all of a sudden we can get our brain engaged and do it. So our brain actually operates differently. We're dopamine chasers. And you want to look at like the emotional sensitivity. Is this just triggered because you're going through a hard time right now, or your entire life have you noticed you're extremely sensitive when somebody teases you, or you feel like you haven't pleased someone or met their expectations? Do you kind of spiral inside and overthink about it for a long period of time? Are you constantly comparing yourself? Like they can follow through, they do good in school, I struggle, I have a hard time, usually with math, but on test taking or remembering things, my short-term working memory. So there's things like that, and impulsivity that we're looking at our whole life. Have we noticed that these things are just a struggle for us? And it's not just I'm going through a hard time, or, I don't like school, I don't like my job. There's a handful of impairments that are causing us to not be able, because what I'll say is that ADHDers are very smart and they're very creative, and sometimes they can hyper focus and just get things done, usually faster than the average person. So it's confusing to them. If somebody asks them, why can't you just do it? They don't know. We don't know why sometimes our brain can just turn on and get engaged, and other times we just can't. And so we start to not trust ourselves. We worry about letting other people down because we don't know if we're going to be able to follow through. If you're an ADHDer and you've experienced ADHD paralysis, this makes a lot of sense. If you don't have ADHD, I find that people will be very critical, like just try harder, just get organized, just plan ahead, wake up earlier. And when you have ADHD, that advice does absolutely nothing for you. You know what needs to be done. You understand, you're smart, but you cannot figure out how to get your brain to do it.
But it helps. Like I am working on organization to tools. I'm constantly trying again to develop ways to fight the condition. Right, I'm taking the medication. I'm doing the right things. So far, I've been able to do well. But Jerry, I want to ask you something. I think is very important. As you are a life coach, so I'm assuming you work with a lot of professionals. How should a professional address this at their workplace? And I'm saying this because I've been having issues at my jobs for some time now. As I said, my last year I lost a job that it took me years to get because I got in a depressive state, the ADHD, the whole thing. I didn't ask for help. I didn't tell anything because I was afraid of rejection. I was afraid of a lot of things, but how should we do it? I want to learn. I don't know how. So far, what I usually do is I don't say anything, but that's not working because sometimes people notice. People notice that I am distracted. People notice that I am lost. People notice that I am a bit slow on some things. Unless sometimes, especially when I don't take the medication right. When I'm taking the right dose, I'm feeling pretty good. I'm sharp, which I'm usually sharp, but if I don't do it, I don't feel good and I don't look good, and people notice that. So how should we address that? Because it's something that it's scary for, I guess, for us, because I don't want to tell everyone that I have these situations. I don't want people to help me. I don't want people to hand me things. When I did my master's, I went to University of Miami. One time I exploded in one class. I couldn't do a test. I was crying. I didn't remember anything. Then I went to talk to them and they told me, oh, you can talk to us. We can help you. We can do this and that. I said, no, I don't want help. I want to complete my master's the same as the others. I don't want any giveaways, hands off. I want to be the same as them because I believe in myself. Just if I don't feel good, just give me maybe 1 or 2 more days to study, and that's it. But no help. But how should we address these things in the workplace?
Right. Yeah. And school is usually different than the workplace as well, right? We won't go down this path, but I have my opinions about not being able to take notes into tests and things like that. I don't think that, generally speaking in life, we're expected to remember everything we read and learn all the time. So I think that we have some work to do in the schools as well. But what I'll say about the workplace is this is what we do in coaching is you have an accountability partner. And then we also kind of look at, because everybody's a little bit different. Like I work with some people who have ADHD, but they also have some anxiety. And so they're 10 minutes early everywhere they go. They're always on time. They're always organized. That's not typical for ADHD, but they have extreme anxiety as well. ADHDers are usually late and disorganized. And so every single person I work with is a little bit different because their problems that they're having at the workplace are different. Sometimes it's like not being able to stand up and advocate for yourself or share your good ideas. Other times it's being late to everything or not hitting any of the deadlines. So we want to look at, first of all, ADHD, there's a lot of symptoms, but they're not impairing for everybody. We want to look at what's impairing. When you go in to get treatment, for example, with medication, if you just go in there and say, oh yeah, I have ADHD and there's all these things going on, you're not measuring, okay, is the ADHD working? If you just come in and say, yeah, I think it's working, I feel better, we want to measure. What are the things that are impairing? Let's treat those symptoms first, and then let's measure every time we see you. Okay, it was a 5, now it's a 4, now it's a 3. We're getting somewhere. So that's one thing that ADHDers are not very good at. We're not very good at self-appraisal. We just keep doing the same things over and over again, getting into the same problems, not really solving the problems that are debilitating for us. We really want to focus and be organized about, where do I need the help? And where are my ADHD symptoms not really affecting me? We don't want to pay attention to those. But in the workplace, some general advice I can give is ADHDers are usually impulsive and impatient. And so we want it all and we want it now when we go in big or go home. And when it comes to getting organized and following through and being able to show up in a professional manner, go big or go home isn't usually the answer. I'm a huge risk taker. I've been an entrepreneur my whole life, so I love all of those things. But when it comes to processes and doing things that I consider to be boring or that I'm just not really interested in learning how to do, but I know that it's important for me to learn, I really think that just tackling one thing at a time. It's like, this is going to be a new process that I'm going to focus on this week. And then the next week, I'm going to add something else to that routine. And then the next week, something else. For example, I have a lot of ADHD traits that a lot of other people do, as far as the forgetfulness and having things everywhere. But I'm really, really good at, for example, taking my medication. Almost as though I have OCD, I never forget. That's not common. Most ADHDers forget to take their medication. But I made a point and I had a really good reason why. I have Hashimoto's and deal with some other things, and I like to take my vitamins, and I can share with you later some of the things that I do naturally to really help my ADHD, because I do feel like I don't have a lot of debilitating symptoms anymore in my life. And I don't attribute all of that to medication, but to vitamins and processes. But I'm just really diligent about that. But I had to train myself to do that. So an example I have for this is, if I were to say, I need a better everything in the morning, and I were to say, okay, starting tomorrow, I'm going to wake up earlier, I'm going to go on a walk, I'm going to drink more water, and I'm going to take my pills, and then I'm going to do some yoga. If I try to do all of that, starting tomorrow, I am definitely going to fail. I took on one thing at a time. I really want to take my medication. Here's why I want to do it. I'm going to do it every morning, and this is how I'm going to do it. And I got my cute little pill case because novelty is a thing for us, and I enjoy opening that up. And I did that for a while. I don't even use the cute pill case anymore because now for years I've been so good at that habit. So when it comes to the workplace, we want to be thinking about that. Like, am I overwhelming my brain? Our ADHD brain will get overwhelmed when something's in front of us and we don't know how long it's going to take, when we're going to be done. We're always looking for the task that's going to take the least amount of time, and it's a for sure thing. So if I have two things in front of me and I know this is only going to take an hour, and this could take anywhere from a half an hour to 3 hours, I'm going to take the for sure thing. So we want to understand why our brain chooses the things that it does, and that it's always looking for a little bit of dopamine, even in the boring activities. Another thing that I'll say is because ADHDers can hyperfocus and they get into something or they're trying to do a good job, will tend to work, and not plan for breaks or not give ourselves enough planned dopamine. And that's the reason we'll start to get distracted or stray away from things that need to be done, because we've been hyper focused on things that are maybe like a little bit boring. And now we're just a little bit burnt out or our brain is done. So in my schedule, I plan what I call ADHD boosters twice a day. So it doesn't matter if I feel like I need one, because I know me, I will work. And then I'll hit that point where now I'm totally distracted. So an ADHD booster is just a dopamine activity that you enjoy that you know you'll be able to also turn off. So if I'm really into a TV show, I'm not going to use that as a dopamine booster in my workday because I won't be able to turn it off. I'll be so into it. It will go by too quickly. But there's other things I love. I love podcasts. I have a favorite drink that I like to drink that's right around the corner. I like to Marco Polo a couple of my best friends. There are just things I like to do that could take 20 minutes or so. And if I have a little more time, it might even be a massage that I could plan. But every day I plan at least 2 of those. So I have my morning, I have work, I have my dopamine activity, I have lunch, I have work, I have my dopamine activity, I have lunch. And the reason I do that is because my brain will burn out if I don't give it the dopamine it's looking for. I'm less likely to get distracted. I know these are minor things, but these are just, in this podcast, these are little things that I can think of. We're talking about tiny adjustments. And ADHDers usually want to do a huge overhaul, right? I'm going to change everything about the way I'm doing things. It's like, that's not how we get to success.
Yeah,
We
it's step by
find
step.
small adjustments. Yes, sorry. Yeah.
But Jerry, in terms of, should we talk to HR? Should we talk to our managers? Because I remember that manager, she was extremely disciplined, right? An American woman from Boston, extremely disciplined, super smart. And I had a top position, right? I was an enterprise account executive selling to some of the largest banks in America, right? In the world. So the expectation was very high. And some days she would ask me some questions about something and I would be like, I couldn't remember. So she would make me feel like an idiot. Like, you don't remember that? How come you don't remember now? That's so easy. Like, and that would make me feel obviously terrible. And it was my fault because I was not taking the medication, the right dosage. But but I end up losing my job. So what should we do? Should we talk to HR? Should we talk to our managers? Are there any government programs to protect people like us? Because as you said, these are the debilitating conditions. These are everyday struggles. So is there a way to protect us? Who take care of us?
Not that I know of in the US, are you going to be protected because you have ADHD? And so this is one of those things where I feel like it's a case by case basis because, like you said earlier, like you don't really want to give yourself a label. I think that it's going to depend on where you work. There's going to be some managers or directors of programs that are going to be very understanding and work with you, and there's going to be others that are going to be judgmental. I would say that, and this is not an exaggeration, I feel like probably 50% of the people out there that are neurotypical don't even believe that ADHD is real. I hear it all the time on social media. I'm working in the schools all of the time. I'm trying to help kids with IEPs and 504 plans, and I'm hearing this kind of stuff all the time. And so, it's going to be a case by case basis. I can tell you personally, if it was me, I would go in doing the best that I could, being prepared to manage myself correctly. And if it
And
gets to a point,
take the right medication, obviously, too.
take the right medication. I mean, and this is what I mean by like self-appraisal. Like it was probably a pretty quick fix, but in your mind, it's like, I can do this. And you're maybe, I don't know, I don't want to speak for you, but maybe not even realizing immediately maybe the effect it's having on your work until already it's been a couple days and you're realizing people are disappointed in you. I don't know, but I do think that for some people, it would be appropriate if you get to that point and you're acknowledging, okay, they're not happy with me, they're not upset with me, going and having an honest, I think more importantly, owning things, right? Hey, here's what's going on with me. I didn't mention that I have ADHD because I don't want to be treated any differently, but I had a medication dosage change. She doesn't need to know that you're the one that changed it, right? And we made some adjustments. I don't think it's completely working for me. I'm here, I'm present, I want this job. Can you just give me a couple of days to get back on track and focused? I'll take care of this. I think being able to advocate for yourself when it's appropriate is very important. I don't know that that I'm completely on board of walking in there right away when you get a job and letting people know. I think waiting until the time is appropriate to share that information, because you don't know how it's going to be received on the other end.
I agree. And I didn't do that. I was afraid of rejection or anyways. Jerry, to
And I'm
conclude,
sorry
because I
about
know
that. I'm sorry about that.
we
I just
have
want
it.
to say.
It's okay. It's okay. To conclude, tell us about other things that we can do to help us, like supplements, meditation. What other things do you do to fight this?
Right. So I've tried a lot of things. Like I've tried everything from neurogum to, like, I can't think of the names right now, but they have like brands of supplements that are supposed to be like stimulants, but in natural form. I personally haven't received much benefit from those. What I can tell you is that saffron right now is making a huge difference in people's lives. And it's just been over the last
Saffron?
saffron. Yeah, you can get saffron in supplement
Yeah.
form. Yeah, and you can
Yeah.
also take it with omega-3. I have it just in the last month. I didn't even plan to share this today because it's so new for me. I'm getting ready to share it with my audience. People are always sending me things, right? Like, try this, try that. We have a new thing. In the last month, I have been regularly taking, they call it happy juice, but it's a mood stabilizer. It wasn't meant for ADHDers, but it happens to have saffron in it. It has a lot of other things. And I have found that to be a huge game changer for focus. I've started using it for my children. It tastes great, but the key ingredient in there is saffron. So, and I can share this with you, by the way, after the podcast, what I'm doing. I really do like it. I found that some of the women who have been menopausal, because when you're menopausal, your medication kind of stops working. There's no estrogen in your body and everything kind of goes crazy. Women have been drinking this and they're saying, they're kind of back to where they were. So saffron specifically, and then the happy juice that you take, and it has lots of other vitamins and probiotics in there, but has been a game changer for focus, for sure, and
Okay,
emotional
perfect.
regulation.
I would like to recommend one as well. I don't know if it helped me specifically for the ADHD, but I was feeling pretty well overall. I think it helped me a lot, and I believe it's the first time I take a supplement that I actually feel like something different. Like
Mhm.
like right away I start feeling more energy or happiness. I don't know, but I was feeling really, really good. And this is not promoted, advertised. They don't know who I am. They don't know anything about me. The company name is RHO Nutrition, and the supplement name is NAD Plus, NAD Plus, and it's from RHO Nutrition because it comes in liposomal form. It's like a liquid that you take, and I don't know exactly what it did, but I was feeling overall pretty good. I would like to recommend it for someone else, for the audience to try it if they want.
Do
It's
you
a
feel
bit
like it was
pricey.
helping your depression more than ADHD, or both?
I was just feeling good, with energy, energized. My mood was pretty good. Just the energy, because sometimes in the morning I struggle with the energy. Like it's very hard for me to stand up and move sometimes. And with this thing, I was taking it first thing in the morning, and I was feeling pretty good. Maybe it was my brain again. I don't have 100% proof, but I believe it did something. And I've taken a lot of supplements, and I believe this is the first time I actually felt something different. So I would like to invite the people to try it, maybe, and maybe share the comments. Maybe it helps them.
Great.
Jerry, I think it's time to end this. How would you like to end the conversation, the podcast?
Well, if you have any other questions for me, I know I'm going to have to wrap up too, but anything else that I can.
For mothers with children, what are the symptoms that a mother can start looking at their children to see to know if there's something wrong there, or
Sure,
not wrong, but if there's maybe ADHD or something else?
it's a great question because many times RSD symptoms will look like bad behavior. It will look like having meltdowns, being defiant, like kind of being bad, like being dramatic, making a big deal over things when really it's rejection sensitivity dysphoria. It's very painful for the child. They're having a very difficult time regulating their emotions and they're perceiving the situation different than it's actually happening. So I think if your child's having excessive meltdowns or seems very sensitive, if they're struggling at all in school, if they're struggling in their social situations, because many times ADHDers will be too much in people's faces, or they're talking a lot, or they're talking about themselves a lot because, just because it's like what ADHDers do. They're all about emotions and dopamine, that they don't always have the best social situations. They can be a little bit too much. Also, like I said, struggling in school. It could be also sometimes ADHDers will display signs of sadness because they're feeling rejected, or they're also comparing themselves a lot. They're noticing that they're not invited, or they aren't doing as well, or the teacher isn't noticing them as much, and they'll take that much more personally. ADHDers, it's like when they're up, they're up, but when they're down. So they're doing this a lot, just extremely sensitive. But if you're also getting reports back at school that they're having a hard time focusing, they're fidgeting, they're interrupting, they're talking too much, they're the class clown, those are all signs that they could be a candidate for ADHD. And then I would say also just looking at their basic sleep patterns, if they're having trouble sleeping, if they're having problems following through. You have some really good kids that aren't hyper, but they forget to clean their room. They forget to put the thing away that their mom asked them to. They're always forgetting, to take something to school. They're just forgetting. And the parents are getting on their case. Why can't you remember? Why are you doing this? And the child, doesn't know why they're doing it. They just have ADHD. They're not doing it to be bad. It's just happening. So like I said, I have an ADHD test on my website for free. If anybody wants to take it, they can see what results come up for them and then decide. If you have any concerns at all, I'd always recommend going to be evaluated by an ADHD specialist. And I want to put out there, definitely not pediatricians, but even psychiatrists specialize in ADHD. So finding someone that really does specialize in ADHD and neurodivergent. And it looks like I may have lost you. So I just want to say thank you so much for having me on here today. I'm happy to come back and talk about
Yes, I'm here.
anything else that you'd like. Okay, great. Yeah, I just continue going, but anytime I'm happy to send you any resources that you would like. I have a free webinar on RSD, any literature I can send you. I'm always happy to be here and help however I can.
Yes, Jerry, thank you so much. Please don't disconnect yet. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining the podcast. I'm sorry we had some internet issues, but thank you so much for everyone for joining the podcast. If you like it, please like, share, and subscribe. And Jerry, thank you so much for joining us today. And please, if you have an issue, please go to a doctor, look for a professional. Don't just keep it to yourself. Go to a psychologist, psychiatrist, life coach, ADHD coach. Look for help, okay? Thank you so much, everyone, and I hope that you like this episode and that you keep following us. Thank you so much and have an amazing day. Bye-bye.